CHS, welcome back to our 6-video series going through the storyline of the Bible. In our first video, we talked about the first act of the story, where God created. He created everything, and it was all good. Man and woman, Adam and Eve, the first two people God created, lived with him in paradise. Everything was perfect until one day, Adam and Eve decided to reject God. In our first video, we read from Genesis chapters 1 and 2. Genesis, if you remember, is the first book of the Bible, and we're going to pick back up in chapters 2 and 3. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. And the Lord God commanded the man, "You are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For when you eat of it, you will certainly die." Now the serpent was more crafty than any of the wild animals the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, "Did God really say you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" The woman said to the serpent, "We may eat fruit from the trees in the garden, but God did say you must not eat fruit from the tree that is in the middle of the garden, and you must not touch it or you will die." "You will certainly not die," the serpent said to the woman, "for God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." And when the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took some and ate it. She also gave some to her husband who was with her, and he ate of it. And the eyes of both of them were opened, and they realized they were naked. So they sewed fig leaves together and made coverings for themselves. Adam and Eve, the crown jewel of God's creation, the only beings created in His image, right away became the symbol for mankind's greatest failure. Adam and Eve disobeyed God's command not to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and as a result, sin entered the world. Sin is anything that we do that is disobedient to God, anything we do that rejects God and His voice and what He desires for us to do in our lives. In the book of Romans, Paul, who is writing to the Christians in Rome, says that the sin of Adam and Eve led to the sin and death of all mankind. He even says that the wages of sin that we deserve, that we earn in our lives because of our sin, is death. Adam's sin affected everyone. We are born sinful because of what Adam and Eve did in the Garden of Eden. In the book of Psalms, it says that we are sinful from the time we are in our mother's wombs, and sin has consequences. Everything we see that is wrong in the world is a result of sin. War, death, disease, famine, sickness, all because of sin. And we see some of the consequences right away. Here's what it says in Genesis. "So the Lord God banished him from the Garden of Eden to work the ground from which he had been taken. After he drove the man out, he placed on the east side of the Garden of Eden cherubim and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life." Sin separated Adam and Eve from God. Because God is so holy and so perfect, He can't be in the presence of sin. But here's what's so amazing about God. Before He banished them from the garden, He showed them grace. Here's what it says. "Then the man and his wife heard the sound of the Lord God as He was walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and they hid from God among the trees of the garden. But God called to the man, 'Where are you?' He answered, 'I heard you in the garden and I was afraid because I was naked, and so I hid.' The Lord made garments of skin for Adam and his wife and clothed them. God knew Adam and Eve were ashamed and embarrassed of their nakedness, and so He provided them clothes to wear." How amazing is that? Even in our worst moments of guilt and shame, God is still so gracious to us. So God created, but then God was rejected. God's plan of a perfect relationship with humanity was now in jeopardy. Something needed to happen to restore God's relationship with us again. So God makes a promise, and that's what we're going to talk about next time.